I realized that my big lesson in that regard was being indispensable wasn't the goal, being replaceable.
At Strategic Coach, we call it unique ability. That person have aligned themselves based on their unique strengths to contribute at the highest level. Jamison, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. I truly appreciate it. And we have had these conversations in the past on Sunny Silver Lining. I was super excited about this today because you talk to entrepreneurs and then you talk to entrepreneur of entrepreneurs, and that's you.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah, and entrepreneurship, it's not for everyone, but when you get a lot of joy, a lot of satisfaction from entrepreneurship, you cannot do anything else. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and also with all these companies that you founded, you built collaborations, what is the greatest lesson you have learned so far as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so a little bit about me. A long history in the IT services world. I owned an MSP for 21 years before I rolled. I acquired 4 others and sold in 2016. I've since founded a few software companies and currently co-founder and chief strategy officer of TimeZest. I also built a coaching and consulting company called ConnectStrat. We've merged with some other companies to create MSP Plus. And then I've got a few other endeavors because I always try to keep myself busy. After I sold my first business, which was my baby, the 21 years, an MSP, I did a lot of reflecting, and it was in what went right, what went wrong, all the lessons I learned, and I'll never stop making mistakes and learning lessons. That's going to happen for the rest of my life. But I really did learn a lot in that. And I ended up writing a book, The Emotional Side of Selling a Small Business.
Yep.
And I realized in that journey that I found it very, very difficult to learn how to scale and build something of value. And I had the help of the first company I bought, the first MSP I bought was called XBar, and it was owned by Brad Benner. And I ended up co-founding 2 software companies with him after I acquired his MSP. But one of the things I realized is that my brand at my company was Jamison West Consulting Services. It was just really a business that depended on me. It was the cult of Jamison, and I couldn't scale myself. I had to begin scaling through process and good people and what I call the 5 Ps. And I could go through that a little more, but ultimately I realized that my big lesson in that regard was being indispensable wasn't the goal, being replaceable was the goal. It was a complete mind shift switch that I've now brought to every business I've been part of since is I can't have a business rely on me. I need to find ways to scale through better people, better process, better priority setting, all of those things.
That is so good. I think that's where, as a founder, you have so much love for your first business, right? When you found your first opportunity to create value for this world, and you're all in, and that's a totally different journey. Your MSP example that you gave, the baby that you called, and then through that journey, then you are like, oh man, there are many other ways to do this. And so basically, my coach Dan Sullivan will call it who, not how. So like that is kind of so amazing way to look at things when you're building a lot more value, because if you can build more value with more people, then your impact grows. You can go 10x, you can go 100x that way, right? So can we double click on that a little bit, that there are a lot of founders, there are a lot of entrepreneurs in the channel that listen to this podcast, and I want them to see things differently in a way that as an entrepreneur, you can build your business where it's not dependable on you. I mean, totally dependable on you by building the process, the system that you're talking about. And that probably gives you a lot better work-life harmony as an entrepreneur. So Double click on that, please.
Yeah. So I really believe that it's about working smarter and not harder, which is like just the easy little sound bite. But it's more than that. It's about figuring out grit and hard work is going to matter whenever you launch any system. You're going to have to dig, or any business, you're going to have to dig in. You're going to have to do the hard work. You're going to have to play every single role in the business because you're probably alone when you kick things off, at least in a small business, in a small entrepreneurial startup. You're on your own or nearly alone. But what you start to realize you need to build in order to create that life work balance and to scale the business is that I think naturally a lot of hard worker technical entrepreneurs, which are, it really comes right out of E-Myth, right? Most entrepreneurs, it's a myth. Most entrepreneurs are just workers who found that think they're going to make a little more money by building a business instead of working for somebody else.
Mm.
I had the maybe slight advantage of not being that. I'm not particularly technical. I'm not the best engineer. I went to the Foster School of Business at the University of Washington. I just loved IT. I'm a tech geek. So I leaned into my love of technology, but I didn't have the handicap of being so technical that I could do all the work. So I had to learn how to put better people around me pretty quickly. So I kind of mentioned the 5 Ps before, but I'll mention them again. This is kind of part of how I think about systematizing any company, but I focused entirely on the IT services sector. People, you have to have the right people around you. Like I'm never the smartest person in the room with great intent. Everybody at their roles better at their role than I could do it. And I love that. And I lean very heavily on an accountability chart and realizing that we need to scale through other people and not myself. So I always start with the people part. That's the number one of the 5 Ps I always think about. Second is process. When we start working off tribal knowledge and we aren't doing things in a repeatable, teachable way, we block our ability to scale and create enterprise value. And that's a huge part of overcoming me having to jump into everything and do everything, and creating that balance is I can really only hand things off if I have a great process to do so. I think a great example of that in the IT services sector is sales. How many business owners, it's like they eventually get a help desk team built, they start outsourcing, they start doing all these things, but then they hire a salesperson where they were never good at building or following process, because very few entrepreneurs are, and they expect somebody to come in and just start selling when they don't have a great documented process with assets and all of those things, and it inevitably ends up in failure. So being able to really focus on a process that you can hand off well is important.
Mm-hmm.
Third P is priorities, like being able to set proper goals. If you run on a system, we use MSP Plus OS, so we set annual goals, quarterly rocks, weekly priorities. How do you break things down and prioritize the important over the urgent and get big things done is important. And then the fourth one, performance. You've got to measure everything. And so metrics and KPIs are so important.
Yeah.
Having the right ones that aligns everybody to your expectations. And I always found, I've got examples of all of these, but I've always found metrics when I really discovered that I had a help desk team, and I'm a conflict avoider. I didn't like to manage people. And I was always in this emotional state of having to like manage people. I realized that when I had really good metrics that were right in everybody's faces, it was self-managing. Everybody knew the expectation. When the number was red, I didn't have to tell them it was red. They saw on a TV it was red. It wasn't a human problem anymore. And that really moved it to a more objective instead of subjective way to have those conversations. And then the final piece, perspective, which is, as an owner and entrepreneur, you have to find a way to step back and see the forest for the trees. And that's really understanding your vision and your strategy, and stepping back and realigning those things on a regular basis, and make sure that you might be heads down operating, but once in a while, you just got to go, where are we headed? Are we on target? Do we need to adjust? And if you can get those 5 things right, it always inevitably ends up well.
Yeah, that's so good. 5 Ps. Okay,
Yep.
yeah, that's a very Very powerful, very impactful, and I do see a lot of value in that frame. That thinking with that frame of reference is really amazing. Now, can you share some insights in terms of what entrepreneurs can do to live this? Because one thing that I'm keep hearing as part of our Build It community, where MSPs come and they learn, grow, they want to do well, and one of the biggest challenge that they will share is finding right who's, where they can take a step back, because like biggest fear that they have is that this is my baby, right? And if I need to give this to someone where I can take a step back, what if this
Mhm.
person will kind of really damage our brand reputation or damage our financials or damage. It's not that person will have intent to do that, but it's more of really because it's their cash, their capital, they are writing that check. And
Mhm.
when someone is being in a position where it's like they have hard earned money over years and years to build something, right? So majority of the MSPs are in that $5 million range, and they're like, what if someone will come back and kind of really uh, it's really they have fear of failing in
Yep.
that delegation. So I'm trying to figure out that, okay, what people should look for, what entrepreneurs should look for to find their number two, where they are able to successfully give that to their number two, or their future number one, and where they can take that step back and be that entrepreneur, where they can go find new ideas, new relationships, and do that more visionary work, where they don't need to run businesses. So can you share some of your experiences, your thinking to make it happen?
I've had those people in my lives successful, and I do find that there are people that get it and people that don't. So it's I used to be an EOS implementer. Now we've obviously branched off and created our own called MSP Plus OS. In the EOS world, it's called an integrator, right? We call it a conductor. Who's going to conduct the business? Literally, like I think of an orchestra who's conducting. And for me, that's people who understand the business of running the business. They can be more operational, be in the weeds. So it goes back to those 5 P's very clearly, but they need to understand the breadth of those. It goes for leadership in general. When I find a good leader, it's somebody who understands that the community or the team is more important than their individual department, or that nobody's protecting their own interests. You can see the people that start to value the bigger picture. They need to understand all the financials and business side of the business. I see a lot of MSP owners make a big mistake of pulling somebody who's more technical. Nothing wrong with being technical, but don't understand business. I find if you look outside of the IT services industry, that number two person, if you look in a lot of enterprise and watch what happens when a CEO retires or something happens, who usually fills their seat, at least temporarily? It's the CFO, and there's a reason for that. It doesn't take I don't need an engineer to run my business. I need somebody who understands the business to run my business.
Hmm.
I'm actually coaching a couple of owners right now who are trying to do this exact thing, and not coincidentally, their number two, or the person that we're really working with, is not a particularly technical person at all. They come from the finance side and they understand how to run a business. And I really believe that I've seen that mistake repeated over and over and over in our industry. And it's not that a technical person's wrong, but they have to have a different mindset. So that's number one is just stop that reliance on that. I think the other thing is it's very, very hard to just find somebody to do this. So the relationships happen over time. The level of trust that's required to bring to let go of the vine, to have somebody run your business, it's significant. So it's a transition. Whether you're choosing somebody that you're grooming from within your organization, or you're hiring somebody who's on a path, this is not a short-term transition. It absolutely takes time. But like anybody, whether you're a manager with a direct report, if you're a parent with a child, if you're an owner with a number two, you still have to define what the guardrails are, create expectations, and give people authority and autonomy with these guardrails, and then step back and trust but verify. And that process works very, very well. So when I kind of get into ownership mode and I start letting go of things, I have very, very clear expectations. I have metrics and rocks and other things like that that I'm looking at that are performance indicators and regular check-ins, but I can start to remove myself operationally because I've set the right expectations and put the proper guardrails in place.
Yeah.
And now it's touch points. And you find yourself doing that with your kids as they get older. Those guardrails get wider and wider. Those expectations become clearer and clearer. And the same happens in our work lives as they do in our personal lives. That's been successful for me.
That is so good. So starting with a lot of clarity in terms of who you want in that seat and what good looks like for you to have the right person in that seat. And then being able to, that normally comes from that business background or the financial understanding, the financial acumen, and then a lot of relationship trust based. And what I think, what I heard you say is trust and verify. So define the outcome, define the guidelines, and then trust and verify. And as that person is creating proven value, then you keep expanding their territory.
Correct. I believe that. Yep, that's absolutely right. It's just this. It's trust is one of those things that just continues to get built. You release it more and more and more.
Yeah.
I also really believe, I mean, everybody has different philosophies on this. You hear it all over the place. But if you really get that extremely strong number two and you know that you've got the person, then I really strongly believe in an outcome for them, that it's worth it for me, for them to have a piece of whatever this outcome may result in. If they continue to lead and run my business in the way that delivers a better out, it's releasing me and they're growing it with my equity, then they should have a bite of whatever that results in, whatever that looks like, whether it's profit sharing or phantom equity or whatever. But I have a strong belief, even though a lot of people say like 100%, they're going to hold 100%, that it doesn't need to be equity necessarily, but it has to be a bite of that success. And I think that salespeople, we naturally compensate through success metrics. Engineers, we typically don't very much, maybe a little tiny bit, but they don't have a lot of tolerance for risk.
Yeah.
But this person and the whole entire organization should have the highest risk, highest reward. And if their values and outcomes are aligned to the owners, then they should share in the risk and the reward. And I really believe strongly in that, and that keeps alignment very high.
Yeah, and that's one of the attribute that you are probably looking for. That who has that high tolerance, because that's entrepreneurship, right? High tolerance to that risk, to get a share out of the outcome or split the outcome that you create from when you partner up to the future. So having that participation in the future money, as someone who has that, as a passion, that hey, I am confident and courageous enough to bet on this and get my fair share of the future money.
Yeah, I want my number two to feel like they are betting on themselves, because that's how I feel. I'm betting on myself, and now I'm going to bet on you a little bit.
Yeah.
I want you to feel the same way. So it becomes this mutual, like now there's no reliance in that. You know what I mean? It's powerful.
It is so powerful. And no, this is so good. The mindset, and also that the approach that you can take to create your own time freedom as an entrepreneur, by thinking this way, that you're not doing everything. So can you also share, like, what are the one or two things that you're seeing? Like, you're probably looking at a lot of businesses as an advisor. What are the top one or two things that you see where, especially our MSP friends, they are failing to execute on this the strategy, that what we just talked about, that mindset and the strategic direction that one can take? What are the common mistakes that you see, and what's your advice for them to do it well?
Well, there's a lot. So I could go, that question could go in a lot of in a lot
Okay.
of directions. I think that I do see a lot of business owners have a very, very hard time getting out of their own way.
Mm,
And even if they implicitly trust for the exact reasons that you prefaced earlier, it's my money and my life, my whole financial world is on the line here, and I just can't sleep at night without being somewhat in the weeds. Very, very common scenario, and usually doing themselves undermining their own success at getting a little more value and getting out of the business. And it's a really obvious psychological thing that happens and it makes total sense, but it takes a lot to break that cycle and get people out of their own way. And it really takes the right support from a number two, maybe, or the right coach to help them through it, kind of get that mindset right. For me, I don't think I ever got it right in my MSP. It was after I sold it, realized that my emotional connection was preventing me from doing things better, that emotional connection was actually dragging me down and not helping me. It was all well intended, but I struggled to make a lot of the right decisions because of that those emotional decisions. Now I'm less emotional about the brand and the company. It's very powerful. I get very excited about it, and I love the people. But that's different. I now can view the business and the equity as an asset, and the people as being part of helping that grow, as opposed to it literally feeling like my baby, which is a very different mentality. So I think that that's one place I see business owners make mistakes, and having to kind of shift their line of thinking is this: I value my people, but the business is an asset, right?
mm.
It's not a child, and that's a very different thing. Yeah, I think that that's the main thing that I would jump in and highlight right away, because I'm very focused on the owners. I do work a lot with the leadership too, like the number twos. I work a lot there too. I think for those folks, they're a step behind what the owners are already. They're just going through it later than the owners. But most people who are in that number two role are coming out of a role that they've already been on the leadership team, and they're moving up into that like president or conductor role. And it's very, very challenging for them to relinquish what their core role or what comes naturally to them. So if I come from the engineering background and I move into the leadership role or president role, I naturally, if I have a bunch of stuff to do on my desk, I have a client who verbalizes this to me very clearly. I had a meeting with him yesterday and he said it again very clearly. It's like, you give me a stack of stuff to do, I'm going to go do what comes naturally and easily to me, and that's technical work. I've got another client who does the same thing. Put a pile of stuff in front of me, I'm going to go do I'm gonna go reconcile the quick, my checking account. It's like, well, that's not valuable. You're a leader in the organization. Have somebody else do that. So it's getting into that highest. I'm kind of teeing up like what I love to talk about a lot, which is HABU, highest and best use, and really understanding what value you bring or need to bring to the business as you elevate into leadership, or if you're an owner of a business. Like, literally, if somebody or something, if we talk about automation and AI, or are there people, if we talk about global talent, or are there ways that this repeated lower value work could be handled, or am I spending too much time doing things I shouldn't be doing? And I'm starting to work with more clients, leverage, and having them grab one of those time trackers with 12 sides, and like, when they shift what their exercise is or what they're doing with their time, they're going back and looking, and I'm like, are you doing urgent interrupt driven tasks that are low value, or are you doing high value, low interruption, deep thinking work? And people think they're doing one, but they find out over the course of the week they're really doing the other. And that's you just can't do it. You can't elevate a business if you're in the weeds.
So good. I think wherever I have seen people doing well, that is the mindset that, okay, high payoff activities, highest and best use, and deep work that you mentioned, that they're doing more strategic work, they're doing more deep thinking work than just kind of more of urgent work. And it's so far, if I'm tracking you in this, so if someone wants to get out of their own way. This is their intent, that they want to be able to create their freedoms that they thought are possible as an entrepreneur. Where they have to start is mindset. That mindset that I need to be able to focus on highest and best use of my time. And I need to look at business as an asset, not a baby type of emotional connect with the business. And having that asset, so caring about people, but taking that care of people and inviting people in to grow this asset, and where their future gets bigger as well, not only yours, because it's an asset you as a team are growing. That's a
100%.
mindset, right? And then
Absolutely.
yeah, and then kind of having that plan to make sure that you see that and you kind of operationalize that plan. So if that is the step one, what is the step two? What's the next? So now their mindset is good. This is what they want to do. What are the other two to three things that they can do, Jameson, to go from where they are to where they want to be?
I think once you have that mindset, you have to begin really examining your organization. And it goes right back to the 5 Ps. Now you've got to go get those things in order. You've got to understand what areas of the business you're going to have to go back and do hard. You're going to have to go into the business and do hard work before you can get out. Like I said, you do the mindset, but it doesn't happen overnight. You've got to set up, you've got to have the right people in the right seats. You've got to have well built, well defined processes. But what you can't do is build the process, then be the person running it forever. And that's where people get stuck. They forget that I'm going in here and I'm doing something in a limited amount of time. I'm getting the right person there. I'm training them up. I'm building the right process, or I'm having the right people build the right process, and then I'm getting out. I'm setting up the right metrics to measure performance, and then I'm stepping aside. I'm ensuring that we have a business operating system with a facilitator or whatever you need to ensure that we're focused on the right priorities. Once I've kind of put all those levers in place and I know I have all of those 5 Ps propped up pretty darn good, I begin to now be able to step back. I've created an operationally mature organization that I can step out. I know it's obviously very hard to do. If you're a 2-man shop, you're doing everything. But you start getting into becoming like a $5 million company. And if you do this right, you don't need to be in the business every day doing in the weeds work. You get to do what you're passionate about. And I love it when I have some owners that are like, I'm down to 2 days of work a week. And maybe I hold one role or maybe I'm holding on to I have one client who's down to 3 days a week and he holds on the sales hat. So he goes to leadership team meetings. He's not wearing the owner hat. He's the sales leader. That's it. And he's enjoying 4-day weekends, and that's beautiful. I love that for him. I have other clients who are like, I freed up half my time. Now I'm going into real estate investing with the other half of my time. It's just kind of like you spoke out of the fraction of your time. Like I know that you do some of that. It's people get to now split their time and go do what they're passionate about. I've been fortunate enough that like you said at the beginning, I'm a serial entrepreneur. When I find a little free time, I fill it up with another entrepreneurial endeavor. It
Yep.
gives me joy. So I think that's the thing. But I can't do that until I've got enough maturity in the organization to feel confident that I can make that move.
Yeah, no, that is so good. Examples that you just used with some of your clients, someone doing more focus on sales as a piece for 2 days, 3 days, but they have created their freedom. And what I was hearing, not only time freedom, their passion freedom, their purpose freedom, they're more of at strategic coach, we call it unique ability. That person have aligned themselves based on their unique strengths, unique ability based work. And they're not taking ownership role, they're taking a role based on their unique ability to do what they need to do to contribute at the highest level.
Yep.
And that's where the joy is. That's where you produce superior result with your passion based and your unique ability based activities. And that's where energy comes from. You have a lot of energy to do that. You are producing the best result there, and you are also letting other people to grow that asset. So you're part of probably that asset building, but your contribution, your impact on that asset building is the highest because you are playing in your unique ability zone, and that's so good. Now, another piece that I was thinking, I mean, some people like you and me, we both were part of Evolve. And in my HTG3, few people they were like $3 to $5 million businesses as part of my peer group. And now a few of them, and they're both our common friends, multiple actually common friends, where they had the $3 to $5 million MSP. And then they took that route to the PE route. And whenever I talk to them and I ask, well, what's the biggest insight from you being a private company business owner, you running your company to this? And what you said earlier, and I'm like, oh, there's a proven value there. There's a proof there that what Jamison is saying is so true. And some people in our own channel have done it. And they will say, Sunny, first thing that my PE company did when they came in was they really paid a lot of attention to the CFO seat, that who is going to really take care of the financial part. They did so well in selecting the right person there that I wish I knew that it's not the COO position or other positions. They're important, but who is going to really come there with that financial background and the business acumen? And they fixed that part first. And the second, Sunny, is that I always thought that, okay, my best technical lead or my best service delivery manager is going to be my next, maybe like the C lab, my number two. It could be VP of operations or something, but no, that number two normally have that business acumen, the financial piece. So, and then they were able to really focus on what they do well. It could be, hey, I'm going to go out there and find M&A targets. And now the same, like probably $10 million MSPs that they were when they took their money. And now they're like 200 million, 100, 300. What they did differently is what you just explained, step by step. Is so true. And there's so much social proof there, what you're saying. And I just want our listener, like especially our MSP friends, if they're listening to this, that there's so much social proof that exists. What Jamison is saying is if you want to be an entrepreneur where you want to have your time freedom, your like that asset building freedom, the enterprise value creation that you're working for, there is much more efficient way, much more joyful, that you feel more fulfilled because you're doing your purpose driven work, your unique ability based work, and you're doing it with others. But the main thing that you're looking at measuring and managing is not the utilization of engineer. You're measuring and managing the enterprise value.
Yep.
Where it was, where it's going. And I think it's just a mindset shift. So thank you so much, Jamison, for coming and sharing your thinking, your wisdom, your experience. It's so good. Any last thought that you want to share with our audience?
No, I think that I'm really excited about how our industry is going through. When I started it in my business, my IT company in 1995, we've gone through a few different evolutions. First into managed services, then cloud, then security, and now just this whole new wave of automation and AI is coming, and this concept of highest and best use that we've always talked about, mostly in terms of the human form, is coming in other ways. And it's just really exciting. And it's a good time to think about strategy and what you're going to do going forward. I just think it's an exciting time to be in this industry, and hopefully there was a nugget or two of advice in there, and I'm happy to help if anybody ever wants to talk about it.
Thank you, Jamison. Thank you for coming to my show. I truly appreciate you, my friend, and your impact on this channel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunny.
Thank you for watching Sunny's Silver Linings. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.